tough time. Not only that, the challenge with my friends and relatives was they knew I never did anything great in my life before. Oh, all of a sudden I'm going to be Mr. Successful, sure. So I figured, it's okay, Tom. You'll get it out of your system in a couple months. I went through that too. Because they know me. They knew me. They knew I never did anything outstanding. What? No, yeah, I'm going to retire by the time I'm 30. Sure, Tom. I said the same thing when I saw that 4 years ago. I learned, though. I outgrew it. And so what happens is we start to get discouraged because the very people we had our hearts in on sometimes are our most challenging. Well, then if they're the most skeptical, why do we start with them? It's good practice. You might even mess up and sponsor a couple of them by accident, okay? It's all bonus, though. It's all bonus. I say that sarcastically because, I have relatives that ended up becoming extremely successful in business. My parents are profit-sharing directs in the business. So, there's going to be exceptions. You're going to get some open-minded relatives and friends, but don't get your heart set on it. And the reason is, think about people that... See, I've never seen anybody fail in this business. Never. Because you only fail whenever it's a forced situation that you're no longer allowed to perform because of circumstances. Nobody fails in this business. People make a decision not to continue, but nobody fails. Well, the ones that decide not to continue, is it after 2 months of consistent effort, or 2 years of consistent effort and dedication, or is it after usually the first couple of months whenever their friends and relatives laugh at them? Which is it? Yeah. The very first group of people who happen to be the most skeptical are the ones that blow them out. So if you can survive and weather that sphere of influence, you're on your way. And so a lot of you have already tapped that list. How many people have gone through your first list already? Congratulations, you're a leader. You're moving on. Next sphere of influence is acquaintances. Those are simply people you don't know quite as well, people that might know you by face or by name. And you're going to have a lot more success with those people. I'd still start out with my friends and relatives, though. But then you're going to move into acquaintances as well. They're going to be more open-minded. And the third sphere, I can't even put a circle around it, which excites me because, you know what? It's unlimited. It's infinite. Strangers. Most of them are friends. How many people have met people in this last week that you didn't know before? You should all put your hands up. I promise you, you've all met somebody or talked to somebody that you didn't meet before. How hard is it? I was 1:30 this morning. I was in a Denny's restroom washing my hands, and then walks this guy with a big cowboy hat. Started talking to him. There's a guy I never knew before. He's from Florida. Yeah, I mean, it's all the time. All you got to do is say hi to people. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit, but see, this is the most exciting. When you realize that it's never over. There's 250 million people just in America. I'll go mess up on 1 million in practice. I still got 249 million left. Do you understand the potential of this thing? So many of you get discouraged because you think, I only have 12 names on my list. It's not over. You just haven't figured out how to add more, that's all. There's more, honest. There's a lot more. Get excited about that. It's unlimited. How do you develop contacts? Well, study. That's the best way. Let me give you a couple tapes, a couple things to look at. Contacting is Learnable by Fred Hartice. Powerful stuff. Here's a couple books, Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. I hope you're against some of this because these are tools for your trade. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of an operation and not having the tool you need. Skill with people. How to win friends and influence people. I mean, some of these books are classics. How to start a conversation and make friends. Get some of the tools. Be a student. It's like anything. Think of the first time that you were at the job that you currently have. Now, be honest. You were nervous. You were scared. You didn't know what to expect. You weren't even sure that you could do it. You were just hoping. Now, today, some of you can do it with your eyes closed because you've been at that job for a number of years. It's the same thing with this business. If you ever catch yourself wondering if you can do it, the answer is absolutely, positively, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. But one of the first battles you need to overcome is understand you're going to learn. You're going to realize, you're going to start to learn some things that you don't know now. Just because you're not comfortable with it, you don't understand it yet, doesn't mean anything. You're going to figure it out, just like you eventually adjusted to the job you have. It no longer is intimidating like it used to be. It's the same thing here. You're going to learn, but you got to be a student. You got to now, and you're going to be putting effort. Now, this is your own business. You're going to put effort into your own business this time. Okay. Those are some tools to get. I like to build the list to at least 100 people to get people off to a good start as far as booking meetings. If I don't have 100 names, if I only have 30, 40 names because they run into a mental block, I leave it and schedule time to come back because I don't want to book 2 meetings without enough names. I'm setting them up for possibility of a big disappointment. I want to reinforce it. I want to stack the deck in our favor. Okay. I was talking about building your list. It's a continual process. You need to constantly keep a pad of paper around you in your car or on your person. So when you think of a name, you want to instantly write it down. The biggest mistake you can do is, oh yeah, I didn't even think about him. You see somebody on the street and think, I'm going to have to put their name down when I get home. Folks, you're going to forget some of them. And the toughest part of that is when you see them 3 months later at a function in somebody else's group. Oh, I was going to call them. Write them down as soon as you think of them. Continue, always, add into your list, add into your list. As you're contacting people, all that is meeting new people. Now, that was a challenge for me because my nature is to be, I'm basically a shy individual. Now, if you put me around a group of people I know, I can be the class clown. But when there's people in a room that I don't know, my nature is to be very reserved. I mean, I'm not an introvert to the point where I don't talk to people. It's just that I'm not the type of person to go out and create a conversation. I have to get myself to do it. And I'm the type of person, if I walk in an elevator, I watch the numbers. Okay? And if now someone else says something to me, oh yeah, I'll converse. But I'm not the type of person by nature to initiate the conversation. But I've changed that. Why? Because it pays really good. Okay? That's the only reason. I'm going to be honest with you. I have to constantly focus on that. So what I do is I learn to voice some of the things that I used to just think about. For example, if I saw somebody had a nice tie, I'd think to myself, nice tie. And I wouldn't say, now I'd say, hey, nice tie. Or if I saw somebody pull up in a new car that was really nice, I used to almost pretend like I wasn't looking at it. Because I didn't want to give them the satisfaction that I recognized they had a nice new car. Now, isn't that sick? But that was my own poor self-image. Because I was driving an old beat-up 69 Pontiac station wagon. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of recognizing that they had a nice car. Today I thought, man, that is a beautiful machine. Wow, that's the new Seville. Do you like it? How's it run? That's one of those STSs, isn't it? Yeah. Are you satisfied with it? Oh yeah, and I let them tell me all about it. How long have you had it? Is it performing well for you? Oh yeah, and they give me all, what do you do for a living? Folks, it's so easy when you start complimenting people. You know what it comes, here's contacting, ready for this? In a sentence. It's taking an interest in other people. You know, I had a challenge contacting in the beginning of this business because I used to always be so worried about what I was going to say. In fact, even when I did strike up a conversation with them, as they were talking to me, I was so busy thinking about what I was going to say next, I didn't even catch what they were saying to me. And so I'd find out that I'd ask them a question about something they just told me 2 minutes ago. And the conversation would be very shallow, and it would end soon, and they'd walk away, obviously, because they knew I wasn't really listening. Now, you know what I do? If I'm talking to someone, I'll ask little questions that causes them to tell me things, and I listen. Because if you trust yourself, believe me, the people you're talking to will tell you what you need to ask next, just by the conversation. I don't know if that's making sense to you, but the art of making contacts is being a good listener. What's anybody's favorite subject? Absolutely. Did you ever see a woman who's real shy and quiet until you start talking about her kids? She'll tell you, oh, I got pictures. Boom, she pulls out a roll of pictures. This one here, this is when their second birthday, and this one's when they're at the park. And all you got to do is take an interest in other people and ask them questions. And this is an old classic. Most of you have heard it already, but use a 4-letter word, F-O-R-M, form. What's that stand for? Family, occupation, recreation, and message or money, whichever you prefer. You could talk about that stuff. Usually I don't even get past occupation by the time I've made a contact. How'd you get in? What do you do? How'd you get into that? Is that right? What kind of education did you have? Or what kind of training did you have? Well, how'd you find that job? Well, did you enjoy it? I understand people doing that make a real strong income, huh? Oh, who you been talking to? And then all of a sudden they start telling you what's wrong with it. And folks, it's so easy by taking an interest in other people. Now, the big panic point that after I mastered that, then the next phase I went into was, well, geez, how do I get the conversation around to talking about the business? Well, first of all, don't force it. Don't force a contact. If you are nice to enough people, Some will be contacts, and some of them will just end up in a conversation. I don't force every conversation I have with a stranger to be a contact, because I don't want to make it to look, I'm just interested in them because I could potentially make money as a result of our relationship. I don't want that. I just want to take an interest in people in general. Some will become contacts, some won't. I'm not worried about it. I don't force it. And generally what I do, if someone really impresses me, I'll just say to them, I'll just say what I'm thinking. I'll say, you know what, you have a real good attitude. I like what Randy Haugen says on one of his tapes. Is your attitude always like this, or did I just catch you on a good day? And then, I'd like to think I have a good attitude. You know, and then you look at them dead in the eye and smile. One of those Jerry Hartice smiles like you're up to something. And say to him, Jerry Hartice has got to be the best communicator and the smoothest individual. Jerry Hartice at a plan can smile and everybody, give me a kid. Because he's just so warm and friendly and sincere and genuine. He's got one of those smiles that you just know he's up to something good. And you want to know, you want a part of it. And you look at him with one of those smiles and you say, man, I tell you what, you'd be worth a fortune in my business. Or you say something like, boy, I hope they're paying you well, because a person like with your skills and personality or your ambition or your attitude, a person with those qualities, you tear up in my business. And then guess what they always ask you? I mean, you almost feel guilty. It's so easy. What do you do? How do you answer that? There's so many ways to answer that, folks. Listen to tapes. I like to say I set up distribution systems for a lot of different manufacturers, a lot of different companies. I work mostly as a consultant, though, teach other people how to develop their own business on their part-time. And then I take it off myself and I ask them a question right back against them. But how old did you say your kids were? And I get away from it. I want them hungry to know more. Some of us, when somebody asks you that, you start doing the plan. Well, and you start spilling your guts on it. I like to give them little tidbits of information, make them want to know more. I have my own business. I have my own company locally here. And a lot of consultation work, teach other people how to set up wholesale retail distribution systems. But let me ask you, where did you get your education, or how long have you lived around here? And I just put it right back on them again. And then what I do, a lot of times I'll get to the conversation where I'll say, well, I'll tell you what, the reason why I'm in this area, in fact, is because right now I'm kind of looking at the business climate and evaluating whether I want to expand some business up this way or not. And things are looking somewhat positive. You know, I'm getting the green light and some of the feedback I'm getting right now. And I'm going to be back in the area here just to check things out a little bit further. And what I might do is, in fact, next time I'm in the area, I'll look you up. We'll get together for a cup of coffee. So in fact, I'll show you some of the things I'm doing. You might be able to refer me to a couple sharp people or be interested in making a couple extra $1,000 a month. Sure, yeah, I'd love to get with you. Sometimes it depends on the relationship I've built in that short period of time. But I'll say things like, yeah, I'll get together, show you what I'm doing. You might know of a couple people that you can refer me to that are ambitious, looking for a way to create some extra money. You know, and meanwhile, they're thinking, what about me? Okay, and the reason is because I'm not saying, well, what about you? Do you want to do more? Now, if that works for you, do it. That's great, if it works for you. But personally, I like to keep it real light and relaxed. And then when I call them back, I'll tell them who I was and how oh, yeah, I remember you. Hey, listen, I promised you I'd get back to you. So it happens I'm going to be in your area Tuesday. I want to see if you want to get together for a cup of coffee. Sure. And then on the phone call is generally where I'll qualify them. Let me ask you something. Before we set this up, do you consider yourself the type of person that's pretty open-minded to looking at different business ideas? And then I'll ask them directly. But sometimes I'll ask them on the contact, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'll just say, hey, I really enjoyed chatting with you. My name's Tom Moore, by the way. And they'll tell me their name. Well, my name's George Harrison. Oh, is that right? How do you spell that? So I remember, George Harrison. Okay, great. Hey, nice chatting with you. And sometimes I've even done it where now, I always do this on a contact. I take a business card and write down everything I remembered about them while it's fresh. As soon as I'm out of sight. Have 2 kids. Wife's 32 years old. She works as a medical secretary. He does this. He went to college at Shippensburg University. And I write all the details on the back of a business card. And then I keep the business cards. And then 2 weeks later, I've got all the information that we talked about. Hey, how'd your little boy do in that playoff game? And he's thinking, wow, how'd you remember that? I'm reading it. He doesn't know that. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but is that sincere? Hey, if I took enough interest to write it down in the first place, what's the difference whether I memorized it here or I memorized it there? Seriously. I've took enough interest to ask them. Okay, and I get back to them. Now, sometimes when I hand out a business card, I always get them to write their name on the back. But if I don't get to that point where we exchange business cards, if like I'm in a hurry and I got to get going, if he tells me his name, that's all I need, because I write it down as soon as I'm out of sight, and I write down everything I remember about him. And I'll call him 2 weeks out of the blue. Some people I contacted, I've never even had a chance to bring up the business, because we ended up having to leave or whatever, and I'll say, hey, listen, the reason I'm calling, I met you 2 weeks ago. We were standing in line at the Burger King, and we got to talk. Oh, yeah, I remember who you are. Hey, listen, the reason I'm calling you, the reason I was in that area that day is I'm expanding a business up your way, and you and I got to chatting, and I remember your name stuck in my head, and I got your phone number. I wanted to give you a quick buzz. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I don't know the area real well, and I'm kind of limited on points of reference to develop my business further. And out of the blue, I know this seems kind of odd, but out of the blue, I just wanted to ask you, do you ever consider other ways of developing income if it didn't take away from your daytime job? Are you open-minded towards different ways of making money? And folks, you won't believe it. The people say, well, heck yeah. They don't think anything of it. They don't bother to think that you had to call information to get their phone number and stuff. They don't think of that. And all you got to do is be a little bit creative and make a good impression on people when they're very warm. That's contacting in a nutshell. Taking an interest in other people, being friendly. And whether you bring up the business or not, to me, I don't know that it's that critical. Now, if we're conversing long enough, yes, I'll always end up bringing up the business and let them know I'm expanding businesses in the area. But even if it's a quick contact and I don't get to that, no big deal. Get yourself business cards if you want to be a successful contactor. Get yourself business cards. Keep it simple. And I do not recommend putting both husband and wife on the same card. And the reason is, for some reason, some people look at that as a little way to make a little extra money whenever it's a little husband and wife thing. You know what I'm saying? Now, the fact that husbands and wives are both involved is critical. That's great. But as far as a business card appearance, I'd put your name. And if your spouse wants a set of cards too, that's fine. But I'd keep it separate personally. I always recommend that you can check with your upline. And by the way, as I'm saying things, folks, if you're not in my organization, please, please, please check with your upline direct, okay? Because they're the ones that are helping you. They're the ones that are working with you. I'm just here to share things with you that have helped us tremendously. But always double check with your upline director above. Business cards, real important. Treat all contacts as practice. Treat all contacts as practice. Treat all phone calls as practice. Treat all plans as practice. Now, you want to have perfect practice. You want to practice hard, but don't make it do or die. I used to treat the seminars and open meetings as practice, and the show and the plan and the phone calls and the contacts as do or die. To me, I'm completely opposite today. See, today, now all my contacts are just practice. That way, it doesn't one way or the other. I don't get down. Phone calls, practice. Showing the plan, practice. Fake it in, great. But to me, this is game day. Open meetings, that's game day. Nuts and bolts, that's game day. That's when I suit up. Did you ever play a sport? When's the adrenaline flowing more? Practice or game day? Game day. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're phone calling, when you're showing a plan, you want to do the best you can. No question about it. Practice hard. But folks, you don't want to make that game day because it's not a win or lose situation. But these are win or lose. Because if you aren't here, you lose. If you don't go to an open meeting for a couple months, you lose. You're losing. You're losing. See, I treat it the opposite. I make contacts, I make phone calls, I show the plan. Seminar, that's game day. Then I make phone calls, show the plan, make contacts, make phone calls, show the plan. That's activity to me. Some are going to get in, some aren't. I'm just going to do the best I can. But nuts and bolts, that's game day. I'm there. Then I show the plan, make phone calls, make contacts, show the plan. Open meeting, that's game day. I'm there. You can count on it. I'm going to be suited up. I used to treat it the opposite. I'd go to the nuts and bolts if it was convenient. But that seminar I had, or that one-on-one I had, boy, that was game day. That was critical. If you didn't get in, how was I going to handle it? Or I had the mentality of, yeah, I know there's an open meeting Wednesday night, but I got a one-on-one scheduled that day. No, that one-on-one does not take priority over the open meeting. You say, well, why? I mean, that's important. Well, it is important, folks, but the organization comes first. My group comes second. Because 6 months from now, do I know if any one person in my group is still going to be in the business for sure? Not for sure, do I? But 6 months from now, can I count on Joe and Jerry and Fred Hartice being in the business?